Welcome everyone. I'm Alex Jong from ADJ Elevate, joined again by Dorothy Herson. Dorothy, welcome. Thanks for joining us.
Hi everyone. Thanks, Alex.
Welcome. Thanks for joining us this week and every Tuesday, as well as other things as well, helping with the book. And for the next 20 minutes, we'll be talking about easing the pressure, how you can prevent burnout in high-stakes pressurized environments, whether that's an ER in the hospital, you're an executive or a partner in a law firm, accountancy firm, or you're actually a graduate and you just started your career. You can still be under a lot of pressure. And for those of you who are joining us for the very first time, we do these lives every single week on the Tuesday for 20 minutes. We also do a Wednesday live, a slightly different setup and format for an hour, same time. We also go on Instagram. Dorothy will ask me some questions. And if anyone wants to comment, feel free to ask me questions too. So Dorothy, take it away.
Yeah, thank you, Alex. So I think it might be helpful for you to begin by explaining what these high-pressured situations might look like, just so that our listeners or viewers can get an understanding of exactly what constitutes a high-pressure situation.
Yeah, so it comes from an acronym I invented called HPSS about 6.5 years ago. HPSS stands for High Pressure Social Situations, and I came up with the acronym when I was working as a public speaking, presentation and pitch trainer and coach, helping startup founders with their pitches for millions of pounds, dollars, or euros of investment funding. And they were under what's called a high pressure social situation, which is a situation that stimulates a lot of anxiety, that heart pounding, throat tightening up, going dry in your mouth, and then sweating, all of that kind of stuff. Why? Because you're putting yourself in a position of visibility and giving a pitch for tens of millions or hundreds of millions of dollars, pounds, euros. And it's not just startup founders who are pitching or people in Dragon's Den. It's also if you're going out on a date. That's a high pressure social situation. First date, you don't know each other. You may have spoken on an app like Bumble, Tinder, or Hinge, or haven't spoken at all. Friends set you up, and you kind of want them to like you and see if you like them. And you don't know how they're going to click. And maybe, I don't know if it's worse for men than for women. They say men are most afraid of rejection. Women are most afraid of being murdered, for example. I don't know if that's true. I can't say that for women. That's a high pressure social situation. Other examples are the job interview. And I helped a lot of people with job interviews and coach them successfully. And as you know, I worked at companies like Meta, Hi Bob, was offered those jobs, PwC as well. And I've had interviews. I've been interviewed sometimes successfully, sometimes not, more successfully than not, with companies like The Economist Group, with Uber, Adobe, those kinds of companies. That's high pressure social situations, but a high pressure environment isn't necessarily a situation. The situation is kind of like a container. It would take place over a period of time. An interview may be half an hour, a date may be an hour and a half, and a pitch may be only 15 minutes. But an environment is something that you keep coming back to, like the office or the emergency room if you're a doctor, or anything that will last for a period of time. And it's high pressure because the inordinate amount of stress that will tend to come out of this recurring situation. So if you're a doctor in the emergency room and you constantly have patients coming in who have been in car crashes or accidents or who are drunk, then you're going to be under an enormous amount of stress because you're going to have to treat those patients again and again and again. Same thing if you're either a graduate going into a corporate job or an executive going into a corporate job. This could be a high pressure environment because you have to report to superiors, clients, and you have to show up and perform every day for minimum 8 hours a day, minimum 5 days a week. And we'll talk about some of the 5 tips, but that's basically it, Dorothy.
Okay. Yeah, thank you. That's really helpful, Alex. And now just to kind of complete the context around these tips, what might the sort of symptoms or how might this situation express itself in an individual? What might this kind of high pressure situation trigger in individuals who are being affected by these high pressure environments that you mentioned?
Yeah, so I mentioned some of them in, I believe, yesterday's post that if any of you saw, great, maybe that's the reason why you're here. If you didn't see, then I'll just add a comment later. But it could be things like insomnia, irritability, anxiety. It could be more somatic physical symptoms, like heart palpitations, feeling quite sweaty whenever you are going into the office, similar to what I said earlier with the pitching example. You feel sweaty, throat dries up, all of this kind of tension in the body. Or it could be something like, you're disassociated at work, or you aren't as productive. You may be there 10 hours a day, but you're just not getting 10 hours of work done. You're getting maybe 2 or 3 and spending time, I don't know, scrolling on your phone or computer or speaking with people at the coffee machine. Nothing wrong with scrolling on your phone and speaking with people at the coffee machine. Those are actually incredibly good things to do. I love coffee and I love people, but you just aren't getting the work done for some reason. And I just know for myself, I was suffering from insomnia. I had sleepless nights, at PwC. Sometimes at 2, 3 in the morning, or I wake up at like 3:30 for no apparent reason. And I didn't know why. I didn't have anything to worry about. And all the mindfulness I tried, and the thought dump, which is what you do, you write out all of your things you're thinking about on a piece of paper, just freeform writing. And at the end of it, maybe 3 pages, all the things you're worried about and thinking about, you write at the bottom of it, what can I do about all this now? Fuck all, go back to bed. None of that seemed to work, and it worked for many years. Turns out I was in a high pressure environment and burning out. And I liken it to the tachometer or speedometer of a race car. Say you're all going 72 in a 70 mile an hour zone, you're going slightly over the speed limit. And then you're not going to start, you can have the choice at that point to take your foot slightly off the accelerator or the gas. And if you do that, then your car is going to naturally slow down. If you keep crushing it and put your foot down harder, and then you got to 110 miles an hour, which is what people do when they're burned out and burning out, it's going to be the passengers in the car, those in the back seat, and we all hate backseat drivers, don't we? And the passenger, like the DJ, usually, are going to tell you, like, slow down. For the love of God, slow down, you're going to crash. That's what happened to me anyway. It was those who were closest to me who noticed first and told me to slow down. Did I listen to them? No, because I have a big ego and I'm a man. So I didn't until I went into the hospital.
Right. Yes. Not the ideal outcome of that situation.
Really? And that's why I help people. That's why I help people when they are at the 70 or 80 or 85 in the 70 mile an hour zone. And that's where we come in and intercept them. And it's interesting because, like, even people who are at the 110, they've already crashed, but it's better to get them, when they're in the 72, 75, 80, 85 before they get to that crash point. And it's interesting because someone actually messaged me recently. We were having a bit of a back and forth, someone I've known for a few years. And what they said is that, I don't think that I can refer you to any executives because they won't want to hear it. You know what I mean? From the loved ones, even from the loved ones or partners. And I said to them, I completely get that perception of it, but I'm here to tell you differently. They need to hear it. And if they don't hear it from people, they're going to keep doing what they're doing, running on the endless hamster wheel, going back and forth, and it'll be like literally a motorcycle. And then they're going to end up in a seriously bad car crash. Now, those people who are successful are the ones who think differently, who act on their impulses differently. They notice things and they aren't so focused, like head to the ground in the micro. They have a macro vision, and that's what makes them successful leaders, because they have a 30,000 foot view. So that's what I told this guy, and he was like, "Oh yeah, you're right, actually."
Yeah, so that kind of leads me on to the next question, which you've in part answered. But before we start looking at solutions, what would you say to someone who is experiencing a high-pressured environment, probably their workplace, they're having late nights, very strenuous demands, they're under a lot of pressure, they have targets to meet. What would you say if they asked you sort of how they can manage that situation without losing their job or offending one of their supervisors or their boss? Because I think one of the main sort of issues or things that people in this situation will struggle with is the stigma attached to admitting that they're struggling with burnout, or perhaps they worry that if they take their foot off the gas, then someone else they're working with will just put their foot down and sort of exceed them or do better than them or take their role. How would you kind of quell those anxieties?
Yeah, you're completely right. And this is one of the most common things that people say to me, either in the 30-minute free strategy session where I come with a self-care plan, or in the coaching program, which is I can't take a day off work or a week off work. And I'm saying, yeah, you're completely right. You don't need to take a day off work or a week off work or a month off work or a year off work. If we start working together before you hit the 110, 120 mile an hour point and crash, at that point, then you may have to. But if you're at like the 75, 80, 85, up to 90, 100, then there's certain things that we can do together. Because what people don't want to do, especially men and especially executives, high power people, they don't want to lose face. They don't want to take the days off work, all the hours of work, and be seen to be weak. It's probably, again, I can't speak for women, but I'm going to say for men, the worst thing you can say to a man is that you're weak, or perceive them as weak. And if they take that time off work, then they could be perceived as weak, and they may think of themselves as weak. So we don't want to do that. But what they can do is something we spoke about a few weeks ago: the setting boundaries, for example, around their time, prioritization of self-care outside of work. Now, I'm not saying that they shouldn't work 8 hours a day. They may have to and want to work 8 hours a day, and that's fine. What are they doing in the remaining 16 hours a day? Are they getting enough sleep? Are they spending quality time with their family, their husbands, wives, partners, children? Are they making time for exercise? A certain form of well-being, whether that's walking in the forest, going for a swim, having a meditation, yoga, whatever, going kayaking, whatever floats your boat. Given that I say kayaking and whatever floats your boat, that's quite interesting. But hey ho, it can be literally anything. Are you making time for yourself? Because what they're almost certainly 100% of the time, in my experience, not doing is making enough time for themselves. And they don't believe they have enough time for themselves. But I'm here to say to you that there is more than enough time, more than enough love, and more than enough money. That's called an abundance mentality. And a lack mentality, which is what a lot of people have, is there's not enough time, there's not enough money, there's not enough love. That's why we work on reprogramming that belief. And when you fix that belief, that's not to say that they have a wrong belief, but when they kind of like adjust their mindset and their paradigm and enter into a new state of mind of abundance, then naturally they will have more time. They're going to start saying no to unnecessary projects, delegate and delete. They become much more productive and have a healthier work-life balance, which will improve their relationships with their children, their friends. They'll start doing hobbies again. What I started to do after my burnout was doing more kickboxing, for example. Thank you, John, for your comment. You say, hi, this is so interesting after the meeting you've just been in. I'd love to hear more about the meeting, John, that you're in. If you want to share that or ask any questions, or if anyone wants to ask a question. So it's really about reframing, reprogramming, and you don't have to take the time off work. You don't have to take a day or minute off work if you don't want to. It's about what you do at work, and more importantly, what you then do outside of work to invigorate you, to re-energize you. And if you get the basics right, you're 95% of the way there. Sleep, nutrition, well-being, exercise, family time, those kind of things. After that, if you want the accountability of a coach, you can join our Slack community, our private Slack community, which we'll share more about on Friday and Monday in the Crush Your Chaos guide. It's being launched on Monday for free. You can get a link, and I'll put the link in the comments. Or you can simply just reach out to me at meet.adjelevate.com. I'll put the link in the comments now, and then we can just talk about it and give you that accountability that you maybe crave. Dorothy, anything else?
A couple more questions. Just off the back of what you were saying, I suppose something we've spoken about before, Alex, and something you've mentioned is the sort of importance of efficiency over quantity. So, for example, when we were discussing your book about when it came to applying for jobs, rather than sitting in front of your screen all day and resenting the activity, the process of applying for jobs, you came up with very small increments of time, and you said within that time frame I will apply. Outside of that, I am going to do things that I enjoy and live, like you say, this sort of more abundant lifestyle. Do you think people can apply that if they're struggling at work, sort of apply that ethos and mentality to the way that they are managing their time at work, and sort of the application of a more efficient small bursts of work rather than long hours that are less efficient, maybe more about a FaceTime culture, wanting to be seen at your desk and not to leave and go on breaks? What would you sort of say around that? Do you think there's a link there?
Yeah, definitely. Because this whole hustle and grind culture, that's an old paradigm. It was in vogue 7 years ago or so. And some people still believe that. If that's what you believe, that's fine. Let me know when it gets results for you. And I haven't met a single person who it actually has results for these 18-hour days of hustle, grind, and all this kind of stuff. Fair enough. So what worked for me, and what I wrote about in the book that's coming out in January, is the 5-minute method. And that's what you were referring to, Dorothy. You know that because we worked on the book together. Most of the people don't know that unless they spoke to me about it. It's effectively what I did was take 12 tasks, 5 minutes a day on each of them, maximum an hour a day. Those tasks were specific to me applying for a job, like LinkedIn networking, working on CV, 5 minutes, working on cover letter for 5 minutes, sending off applications, 5 minutes, email recruiters, 5 minutes, etc., etc. Some other things like exercise in there for 5 minutes, call a friend for 5 minutes or a loved one. And I focused literally an hour a day doing those 12 things, and I had the remaining 24 hours of the day to do whatever the fuck I wanted. And I even wrote on a piece of paper at the bottom, I'm going to do 1 hour a day of nice things for myself that are going to get me a job, and then I have the remaining 23 hours out of the day to do whatever I want. That's 1 hour of a day, 1 hour of the day doing nice things for myself, and probably going to fucking hate it. And actually, even though I thought I would hate it, I didn't. I loved it. And you can do the same thing in your job. I'm not saying it has to be an hour a day, you know. However, we talk about this, and if you download the Crush Your Chaos Power Guide that's coming out on Monday, then we talk in the first page on that about Pareto power. Now, many people have heard the Pareto principle. 80% of the results you get will come from 20% of the actions that you do. And most people are aware of that, and they think, oh, that's cool, you know, 80-20 rule, you know what I mean? We take it even further exponentially, you know, take another 20% of that 20%, you know, that's 4%. 80% of 80%, that's roughly 61.2%. Do another 60% of that, then you literally have the single most important action that will give you, it'll be literally one thing that will give you 51.2% of your overall results. Focus on that for, let's say, for example, 4 hours a day at work. And spend the other 4 hours of your 8 hour day doing everything else. And then you're going to get much more done than all your colleagues and co-workers combined. And you have to take my word for it. This is what people like Steve Jobs did. You know, it's what people like Dave Asprey did. Dave Asprey, for you know, don't know him, the founder of Bulletproof Coffee. What Jerry Seinfeld did. You know, no one Jerry Seinfeld was such a successful joke writer, comedian, you know, and still is to this very day. Many people have implemented this, the 5-minute rule, the Pareto power, exponentially. It's a great success. And there are people who still believe in the hustle and grind. One person is Elon Musk, you know, sleeps in his office, works 18 hours a day. And for those of you who are following Twitter now called X.com, you will see the stock price plummeting. Now, I'm not saying that Elon Musk isn't. He's probably a very intelligent guy. I've never met him before. Love Tesla and that. He did great things with PayPal. However, this hustle and grind culture and mentality just doesn't work in this day and age. And what works is 7-figure self-care, which is treating yourself like the most blessed, beautiful, and prosperous person on the planet. Dorothy, have you got any questions, or should we talk about the 5 tips now?
I was going to say, I think it's definitely time we move on to the 5 tips. People are probably waiting in anticipation for those.
Yeah, I'll put a comment at the end. Anyone wants to do that here straight about the 5 tips? Skipped 18 minutes, 36 seconds. And I really referred to them. I just haven't numbered them. Number 1, if you can see that, it can be a bit blurry. Number 1 is taking your foot off the gas, off the accelerator. When you get to that speed limit, you know, it could be a 30-mile-an-hour zone, it could be a 70-mile-an-hour zone. And for my European friends, 50-kilometer zone or 100-kilometer zone. But that's about removing your foot off the gas as you are approaching it or exceeding it, you know, not when you've doubled it. You know, that's tip number 1. Tip number 2 is sleep. Are you getting enough sleep? And some people need less sleep than others. Margaret Thatcher famously needed 4 hours of sleep. Some people may need 10 hours of sleep. And it's up to you to figure that out for yourself. You know your body best, not a doctor, or your partner, or your children. You know your body best. So tip number 2 is, are you getting enough sleep? Tip number 3 is, are you enjoying your work? Is it aligned with your purpose, your values? Because if you enjoy, here's the thing: if you enjoy something, having a smile to your face, and you actually wake up in the morning, you may not wake up in the morning every day and think, "Yeah, I'd love getting to work." You know what I mean? That's it would be kind of insane if we all did that. You know what I mean? And then we have people, crazy people in the office. I think, that's no, but as long as you have a sufficient level of enjoyment and it's aligned with your values and your purpose, your mission, that's fine. You know what I mean? It's when, and I know people who are very successful, I won't name them, who work like 12-hour days as executives, and they don't burn out simply because it's aligned with their purpose, mission, values, and they enjoy it. And that's great for them, you know. If you aren't enjoying it, on the other hand, and it's not aligned with your values and your mission and your purpose, and I'm very clear on my 7 values that I won't share them now because of the time constraint, and it's not relevant. Then get clear on what you enjoy, your purpose, mission, and values. The reason I burned out is because I wasn't enjoying my work. I wasn't an accountant in the first place. Why did I do it? That's number 3. Yeah. Number 4 is ensuring that you have the other basics in place. By that, I mean things like water. Are you drinking enough water a day? You're hydrated. Are you having sufficient good quality food? Doesn't have to be organic vegetables, but if you're the kind of person who has Deliveroo, Just Eat, or Uber Eats every day, multiple times a day, you may want to rethink that because you have to fuel your body correctly. This kind of stuff. And number 5 is all about time. What are you devoting your time to inside of work and outside of work? If inside of work you're devoting the majority of your time, or a large extent of your time, to fighting fires and solving the needs of other people, as opposed to the work that is giving you meaning and enjoyment, that is something you would really want to look at. And you can time track for that. I actually use an app called A Tracker to track my time. And I don't track all my work. So I'm like literally granular, everything I'm doing. I just literally say working on the business. You know what I mean? And that goes into a category. Outside of work, I have other categories I track my time in, and I prioritize self-care above everything else. Now, when I have children, I'm going to prioritize family, of course. That's a bit different, So I was speaking with a woman yesterday, in fact, who's just taking a 6-month sabbatical, and she's prioritizing her family time because of that. So what are you doing outside of work, your time expenditure? If you're spending time on self-care, and if you have all the other 4 tips I've just said, the sleep, the other basics like the water, the nutrition, your values, purpose, mission, alignment, enjoyment, and then you prioritize your time inside of work and outside of work effectively, you aren't going to burn out. And if you still burn out, despite all of those things, then it's definitely time to speak with someone qualified. It could be a counselor, a therapist, a doctor, or someone like myself who can coach you with that. But before you get there, as I said, when you are, doing 71 in a 72 or 35 in a 30, definitely reach out to someone before it's too late. So I hope that helps everyone. And for those of you who want more, then I'll just put my meet link in the chat. Thank you, John, for writing that comment on there. I'll reach out to you because I'm really curious about what that meeting is. I'll reach out privately. Dorothy, anything else before we finish up?
Just a query in case people are interested in, because I don't know the answer. Are these sessions rewatchable after and is that on your LinkedIn that people can find them?
Yeah, you can find it on LinkedIn, YouTube, and Facebook, and you can rewatch it anytime. Last week on Wednesday, we actually had over 40 people watching. So I'm thinking at one point for over half an hour. It says so on StreamYard, and I just thanked people on LinkedIn. I was thank you for watching. About half of them responded back saying, it was really great, and this is what they got out of it. The other half were, actually, I didn't watch it, but can I get the replay? So yeah, if you just click on the LinkedIn live link or YouTube or wherever, you can watch the replay.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Alex.
Thank you, Dorothy, and see you on Instagram in a moment.
See you. Bye-bye.
Bye.